Hello and welcome to this episode of Ferris Sports Update. I'm your host, Brody Kaiser. Thanks so much for being with us today. On this episode, we'll talk Bulldog basketball and take a look back at Bulldog hoops actions from the previous week, as well as check in with Bulldog hockey. And first on the show today, we're joined by Ferris State women's basketball head coach Kurt Westendorp. Coach, thanks so much for being here on the show.
Glad to be back.
Coach, you had two really tough, hard-fought, battled games with your team and the Northern Michigan schools over the past weekend, but your team was able to come out victorious in both those, now you're in a 9-game win streak.
Yeah, you try to take them one at a time, but when you have people such as yourself pointing out 9 games, that is a nice run to be on. And you also said it best when you said hard fought, because the UP schools, they're playing some really good basketball right now. They're near the top of the standings. You know, everyone's kind of jockeying for that position, and we knew they were going to be 2 really tough games, and they both turned out to be. You know, they both went to that fourth quarter. You know, this wasn't a week where you're looking at, okay, can we kind of blow a team out and really extend it. This was a week that we knew it was going to be nip and tuck.
Of course, really good crowds on hand for both those games. What was it like to play in front of your home fans?
It's awesome to have as many home games as we're having the second round of conference. You know, we were the road warriors for that first half of conference, being 6 out of 9 on the road, so we definitely are going to take any advantage that we get. You know, and sometimes you need those home fans to kind of charge up your team with a little bit of energy, and we definitely needed that on Thursday against Northern when we had a big halftime deficit we had to come back from. And then Saturday was awesome having a couple high school teams in there. I think we're one of the better near the top of the attendance figures if you look at across the GLIAC. So whenever we can have those fans kind of inject us with a little bit extra energy when we needed it, which we definitely did this weekend, you know, it's a huge bonus.
When you talk about having to close out really close games down the stretch, how important is it for your team that you have some of that veteran leadership?
It's huge. You can't really put a value on it. You can't put a number on, you know, what it's like to have seniors that have been in those moments before, because we can look at each other in the eye with 5 minutes to go in a tie game and say, okay, well, we've been here before and we're not lying to each other. Like, we actually have been there. We know what it is going to take. We know the reasons that we will win, and we know the reasons that we might fall short. So the focus that group is able to have and be able to win so many of these tight games gives them more confidence the next time we're in the situation again.
Go ahead and take a look at some of the highlights from these past 2 games. And first, you start with a really good game against Northern Michigan on Thursday night, where they came out and really set the pace early.
They did an excellent job. They moved the ball so well. You know, they played a little bit of a smaller lineup. They had one of their players that was out with injury that usually plays for them in the post. But that actually opened up the floor for them a little bit. They're shooting the ball so well right now. And they, like I said, they jumped on us for 40 points in that first half. You know, the first quarter we were able to score right back and forth with them. Wasn't a whole lot of stops for either team, but that second quarter they did a nice job continuing to put the offensive pressure on us. And we just really weren't quite ourselves energy-wise. I felt like we were kind of on our heels a little bit too much on the defensive end. And then offensively, you know, we were kind of trading some baskets here and there, but really went cold right before the half to have the big deficit that we had to come back from.
When you talk about a player not being in the lineup that maybe you had anticipated playing for the other team, what kind of unique challenges does that present, not just for you as a coach, but also for your players to have to respond from?
Well, it's just different matchups. So different teams are going to play different ways, you know, based off of what they can put in the post. And they weren't really able to play very many big players, so we kind of had to match up with them a little bit, which is something we don't like to do. We'd love to, if they have to match up with us, rather than us having to match up to them. But they did such a nice job in that first half that we really had to go a little bit smaller in that second half. You know, play a few more guards, less 2-post matchups, make it a little harder for them to guard us as well, because we could spread them out a little bit more. But just defensively, we were able to really clamp them down. They still made some nice plays. They were able to really come back after we made our huge comeback. You know, but we made just enough plays down the stretch, you know, with that smaller lineup to take control of the game in that fourth quarter.
As you mentioned, of course, the halftime deficit, it really felt like you got some big-time energy in that second half from the defensive plays, the hustle plays, and even an offensive rebound that we just saw there from Caden Blanchard.
Yeah, we knew coming out, when you're down 14, you can't wait the entire second half to make your comeback. You got to come back right away, and I think it was something like 15-1 or something right out of the gate. That it didn't take too long for us to get that comeback. So coming back out of the locker room really strong, really early, set it up to where you could really play it out as more of an even game in the fourth quarter and not have to be extending all your energy just to kind of run out of gas at the very end. So it was a really good job of us coming out those first 5 minutes and setting that tone.
Of course, we're well into the season now, but there's still learning opportunities. What was the biggest thing that your team learned from that Thursday game going into Saturday's matchup against Michigan Tech?
You know, kind of just the value of, you know, coming out right away with that defensive intensity and that defensive energy. You know, I feel like on Thursday, I don't want to say that we were necessarily flat, but we just weren't quite as sharp as you want to be, not quite on your toes, not applying as much pressure. I feel like on Saturday we did a much better job with our defensive pressure early on. I know Michigan Tech was still able to get some buckets. They did a nice job. They run a much different offense than Northern. It's a little bit hard for us to guard with as much movement, as many people post up. But I felt like we had pretty good energy with it. They just made some shots early as well. And it was another one of those games that I don't think any team had more than about a 4-point lead the entire first half.
You said that they made some shots, but you start this game, as we look at the highlights, big Mallory McCartney 3, and it seems like she just continues to do that throughout her entire career.
Yeah, when you can count on Mallory to knock it down like she is this year, I don't think she's over 40% from 3. That's a big number for us. So when she's really clicking, it can get going, and it wasn't just Mal. Chloe stepped out and hit a couple. Shauna was hitting a couple. Caden hit a couple. It was pretty well spread out. I felt like we had these good looks early. We knocked them down. Offensively, we were getting a lot of what we wanted, but it was a lot of trading baskets, as you can see here. They got the ball inside. They just moved so well. It was one of those games where there wasn't the score wasn't super high once we get to half, but I think that was more because there weren't as many possessions in the game, but the efficiencies of both teams was really good in that first half.
Big difference in the halftime score between the Tech game and the Northern game, of course. You take the lead in this game. What was your message to the team to try to close the rest of those 2 quarters out?
Well, it was really a nip and tuck all the way through that third quarter as well. Like you can see it there on the scoreboard. I don't think either team really built any kind of a lead until that last 5 minutes of the game, because we went into the fourth quarter tied, and then we made a couple extra defensive plays that turned into some offense for us. Chloe really stepped up. She rebounded the heck out of the basketball. She had 15 rebounds to go with her 25 points. So we were able to make it a little bit more difficult for them, where we got the stops those last kind of 6 minutes of the game, turned a few of those stops into some run-out opportunities, and then all of a sudden you look up at that scoreboard, we get a big steal at the end. Elle gets a big layup. The score gets pushed from a 5-point game, where if they score, goes to a 1 possession, to us getting the steal and going up 7 with a little over a minute to go. We're able to kind of play our game, and here's that play I'm talking about right there. The ball just kind of goes through their hands. We're opportunistic, goes from 5 to 7 with a minute to go in the game, and then we're able to kind of play smart basketball, make our free throws, hold on at the finish. So again, you knew it was going to be hard fought. We knew we just had to get that one spurt that we were searching for that entire game, and we got that spurt. It just happened to come a lot later than we would have liked.
That steal by Elle was preceded by the corner 3 from Deshauna. How important is it for your team that you can get that type of clutch performance from everyone on your roster?
Well, it's nice that Deshauna's really doing a nice job of knocking down that outside shot. Chloe on that clip that we saw, we knew they'd double from the backside. Chloe knew, she kind of looked over her shoulder, saw them coming, able to hit the kick out. And I think Deshauna is up to close to 40% from 3 now. After starting the year a little bit, not shooting 3 as well, she's really turned it on to where every player on the court is a threat to knock down the outside shot.
Coach, as we wrap up here, congratulations on your 9-game win streak, and what's the thing that you want to have your team continue into the rest of your conference schedule?
Well, we need momentum going into this weekend. We've got to go over the bridge again. Got 1-game week. We kind of call it a bye week because you only play 1 game instead of the 2 when you play your travel partner. But we got to come out and make sure that we're clicking and starting to hit that momentum to where you're playing your best basketball going into March. So it's 4 weeks of the regular season left. After this, you got 3 weeks left. You got to be looking at, okay, now it's time to start peaking, making sure we're all fresh, ready to roll, because when it's tournament time, that's when we got to be at our best.
Coach, thanks so much for the time and good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with more Ferris Sports Update.